anyway, my name is Paul Stevens, and I'm from Canterbury Christ Church University, and I'm going to talk to you about a piece of research that myself and what was my PhD student, but now obviously has moved on to the University of Hertfordshire, did together while he was doing his PhD. I'm going to try and place this work, the paper that you have, I'm going to try and place that paper within the of where that work took place, if that makes sense. So essentially what happened was that the College of Policing approached us with a problem, saying that there was a requirement for a bespoke tool to carry out open source internet research. And I think they approached us because we'd had a long relationship with them. The College of Policing, for those who don't know, carry out training nationally for all of our police forces in the UK. We, for a number of years, ran an MSc in cybercrime forensics with them. And so I think there was a kind of good relationship we'd built up. There was a trust between us. And I think when they came to look for something to help with what they had as a problem, we were one of their first ports of call. In terms of the problem, essentially what was happening is there was people, you know, the officers that were carrying out this work were looking, were using the internet to carry out their research. But in order to do that, they were having to record it in very specific ways, according to their force procedure, and according to different guidelines, according to some case law and all those kind of things. But they were using a real mishmash of software. And part of the requirement was obviously to have an audit trail. Part of the requirement was to kind of maybe do some hashes on the bits of, you know, the stuff they were downloading. And so they were using a real mishmash of software, including, you know, things like Excel to record it and have their audit trail. People were using free browser add-ons. They were using expensive suites like Camtasia. Some of the tools were great, but they were kind of used to, you know, weren't always being used for the purpose they'd been designed for. The misery of filling in the spreadsheet, if anyone's ever had to do this, to do the logging procedure, was really bad. And as I say, the hashing was something else that they had to do. So they had to have a separate hasher for a lot of this as well. So the process was essentially this: the officers would be visiting a URL to gather the evidence they wanted. They'd take a screenshot or download particular files. They'd hash those files, update the log, and then carry on doing that until they got what they needed. Obviously, once they completed the case, they'd look to generate a report, and the case would be filed. And so they wanted a tool that could do all of that. And most of the officers that were involved, most of the police staff that were involved, are required to conduct some level of open source research on the internet. So the College of Policing, as I say, requested this bespoke tool, and they wanted one that just did it. They wanted to have the case creation, they wanted the logging, the screen capturing, and they wanted that for dynamic data as well as static data. So, you know, they wanted it for video and audio, but also when pages change as you scroll through them and things like that, they wanted to be able to capture the entire thing, not necessarily just the screenshot. They wanted hashing, and they wanted report generation, and they wanted to be able to save and reload those cases, and where necessary, kind of, you know, have them so they were portable, so they could give them, you know, give them to someone else should they need to. We ran into quite a few kind of less ethical, legal, and procedural issues as we were going along, and in terms of how the open source research was carried out. Certainly, there was some case law that said you needed to have full provenance of the data. You needed the ability to record the history of the data and where it came from. And then a lot of people were using Principle 3 of the ACPO Good Practice Guide for Computer-Based Electronic Evidence. which was the need for an audit trail. Originally, it was developed for dead box computer forensics, but essentially, it's one of the things that open source intelligence gatherers use in order to log what they've been doing. So the dream obviously is, with social media, where it's got a relevance to our security and our public safety. Facebook has been used for all sorts of crimes. Twitter, we constantly have a stream of cases where there is, some dodginess published on there. And you may want to get everything with a particular hashtag. You may want, with YouTube, to be able to download the videos on a particular channel. You may want to have all of someone's wall on Facebook, for example, a screenshot of their entire wall, or their friends' walls, their known associates. But we did start getting into a little bit of a question of, when was open source research becoming covert? And I think that also kind of applied with, some of the laws that kind of govern this. So things like RIPA, we're unlikely to need RIPA to do this. But GDPR means that it must be necessary and proportionate. The Human Rights Act says that it needs to be necessary and proportionate. And on top of that, you've got terms and conditions. So YouTube says we forbid the downloading of videos. Facebook says that they forbid fake or impersonation accounts. And sometimes getting information when you haven't got an account is not possible. And so having a fake or an impersonation account kind of perhaps turns into the covert sometimes. So what we did is we developed a prototype and we took it up to the College of Policing, to one of the courses they were running on internet research. We decided early on it needed to be free, it needed to be open source. I think it's really important with a lot of the security tools that are, particularly for digital forensics, that people are able to examine it and see how it works. And we wanted it to be free because law enforcement don't have a lot of money when it comes to some of these tools. Once we'd got some feedback from the prototype, we then have developed OSIRT, which is this open source internet research tool, which does the capture, the audit, and the report. And you can go to osirtbrowser.com and you can download it yourself. I always described it as a browser on steroids because it works exactly like any other browser. It just allows you to do some of these other things that law enforcement were asking for. And as I say, you can just go and download it. You can go and play with it yourself. In terms of capture, you can do screenshots, full page snippets. You can do full screen recording. You can get the full web page downloaded, so not just the picture of it. You can get the full web page itself, and you can download the videos with it. In terms of auditing, it does it automatically. All the actions are logged, where you've gone, what you did. It hashes any files you're downloading. It's got a date and time stamp, and it puts them in a container. In terms of reporting, it's flexible in terms of how that report comes out. And obviously, if you output it in, for example, a HTML or CSV file or XML file, you can then edit that yourself as well afterwards if you needed to add to it or needed to do more to it. The interface has recently been refreshed, so it's still being updated, even though Joe's PhD finished last year, I think. The interface is being refreshed and other things have been added, like the dashboard. And there are some videos and things in here that I'm not going to run through, but there are some sort of demos in the presentation. If you get that later at some point. But as I say, just go and have a play with some of the stuff if you wanted to. You can obviously create a case. You can take a full page screenshot. And as I say, I mean, that means the entire screen, not necessarily just the screen. You can take a snippet, so you can have just the part of the screen you'd like. You can start a video and get a selection of that screen that's playing the video. you can download the video itself, and you can also add attachments that may come from other places. It has got enhanced social media searching. It allows for note taking, which can be added to the report. It does have Tor built in, Tor support built in, and you can download the web page as well, as I say, rather than just the screenshot as well. We've also just added the dashboard, which allows you to see things much more as an overview, and you can kind of get this in real time. We've also done some work on the making the reports nicer, beautifying them a little bit, streamlining them. And as you can see, this might be how a two-screen thing might work for someone using OSIRT. And this is a little video of the capture on this screen, and then how the dashboard works in kind of real time to show you exactly what's going on, and all the hashes and the snippets and the whatever else that you're able to do. I say you can also do the printing, you can also do the kind of reporting as well. Which is saves, you know, as I say, in different formats, but this is the PDF version. The piece of research in the paper itself is about one part of the testing and feedback that we did. And this is a questionnaire we had, which is looking at the use of OSIRT back on the job. So this is after they'd have had some training, or where they've actually gone into work and they're using OSIRT. We wanted to know how they were trained to use OSIRT, their opinions about the training, their opinions about the tool. It was distributed through the police online knowledge area, Polka, which I think has now been replaced by the Knowledge Hub for those who are based in the UK, and completed by 32 participants. Quite a good range of experience we had of those people who did take part. I think in terms of the previous tool usage, it was useful to see that, you know, lots of them were using Excel, lots of them using lots of different tools, and you can see the kinds of things they were using, which for the most part, lots of the features they were using are now built into OSIRT. In terms of the usage, you can see how long they've been using it. So anyone who's doing over 2 years there is essentially, perhaps they could well be using the prototype, is what that means. But otherwise, the others are kind of people who are using it now. We obviously couldn't tell you exactly which version they're using, because that's updated as we go along. And we can see how much they use it on average per week as well. In terms of how officers were trained, this was quite interesting, because the RIGHTS course, which is the Researching, Identifying and Tracing the Electronic Suspect course, was the course where we took it to the College of Policing. But what we found is that colleagues and in-house training was playing a bigger part in all of this. So sometimes a colleague would go on the RIGHTS course and then take it back to their own force. Did OSIRT capture all the relevant data? Overall, it was very positive that we got the response back, and even some of the other ones were very positive, where they didn't start with yes, and the ones that were negative did turn out to be very much feedback where they were perhaps having particular difficulties, and that felt fed into the development of it, and they were actually with getting some of the video capture stuff working. So they and I'd say even some of the negative comments, they were kind of saying it has enhanced our work. People were saying it made their job easier, and a few said that it made them feel more professional and professionalized what they were doing. One also said it was all they ever knew, so they'd come into the force and that was what they started using. And while it's only one respondent, we're really hopeful that does mean that this will mean that going forward it may become, in the UK at least, a de facto piece of software they use, certainly with some particular forces, where the people who've gone on the rights course have become, you know, sort of evangelists for this, if you like, is the way we think about it. In terms of what they use in OSIRT the most, you can see that the video screen capture and the audit log are the most used there. But, you know, the full screen capture and the snippet capture, lots of things that, you know, even for ourselves, if you were looking to kind of do some of this yourself and get some stuff, these are some of the things that you may find useful if you were carrying out your own open source research. So the impact, you know, this is one DC from Staffordshire Police has said it's at least halved, probably actually more actually, how long it takes me to conduct an open source research. So we've had time saved and a human error reduction, we feel, with this. It's already in use. So these are some of the forces we're aware of that use it, and, you know, there's good feedback from them. There's good good response from them in terms of email and asking for other features and things like that. It is being downloaded and obviously can be downloaded around the world, but we don't have data in terms of exactly who might be using it, who not, apart from, you know, some emails from particular people, but there hasn't been a rollout in that sort of sense. However, what I would say with the development of software, what was really important was the trust that we had with the College of Policing, and it kind of allowed this work to take place because we had access to police officers for exploration of the problem. We had free, it was free and open source software as well. So at one point it was an open source browser. And it was embedded in the COP training. So we had those evangelists and we had some uptake going forward. And then because we involved in the courses as well, we built up trust with the people who've been on the courses with us as well. So Whistle Stop Tour, I know I've probably gone massively over, but I'm not sure. But if you do have any questions, please let me know.